Just your estimate.
I think even a rough estimate of my district, I would say easily a third are undocumented, if not higher.
If not higher.
Yeah. And these are all the people who take care of everything in your life. They work for your companies, they clean your house, they mow your lawn, they take care of things that you don't even know that they take care of. And if they're gone, if they're deported, I promise you will feel it immediately.
I'm reminded, after a few days here in Houston, I'm reminded that the future of the country will be decided by Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to compare California and Texas. There are some similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. Yep. Can you give us, as much as you can, kind of the big picture of what's been happening here in Texas in the past few years?
So, I mean, first of all, I think the problem is that people perceive immigration as just a federal issue or just an issue for other people. But in reality, immigration is something that is pervasive through every aspect of your life. It is not possible to be in America today and not have interactions with immigrants or have your life affected by immigrants. And I think that's fundamentally, we should recognize that. But the scary thing for me is that what is driving this newest round of anti-immigrant sentiment is purely a sense of white nationalism. That there is a sense of America really just belongs to white people. That a lot of people believe that God gave America to white people to rule. And that any time that immigrants, minorities make progress in this country, that is seen as a slight against them, instead of saying that this is a shared nation where when we all do better, our nation does better. And this sort of like separation between cultures and races and groups has really created this like a sort of like zero-sum game type of reaction. It's saying like somehow if Latinos do better, then white people have to suffer. That if Asians do better, somebody else has to suffer. And what we're trying to convince people of all stripes is like, no, we all do better when immigrants do better across the board.
A couple of follow-ups, what you just said. Legally, when it comes to like policy, sure, right? Immigration is a federal issue.
Sure.
But what we're seeing and what you just named, and you're an immigrant yourself.
Absolutely.
You came here how old?
I was about 4.5.
You were 4.5. What you just named very clearly is that this is a local issue.
Absolutely.
That this is a block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood issue. Yeah. Now, thank you for just jumping right in and kind of at the root of this, white nationalism, right? In a state that white people are now the minority.
Either
in Texas.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah.
Either are or already are minority or very close to it.
Yeah.
Right. But still the majority of voters.
And certainly where the power structure is. Now, one thing, I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to like make sense and reflect on all the Latinos and all the Asian people that voted for Donald Trump. Right. So then what does that say about whiteness as ideology?
I think in some sense, it's a combination of things. One is that our communities have simply ignored the fact that these attacks are coming. Simply ignore the basis of these attacks. There's been plenty of people out there who aren't afraid, and they're just saying what they think, and they're saying like, yeah, we're against immigration because it means that you're pushing out white people. And our communities so far have either been deaf to those sort of accusations and to those statements, or simply they don't believe that this is what America's about. Because a lot of the Asian people who came here, a lot of the immigrants who came here, they came here in the last 20 years or so. Yeah. And they see an America where everyone essentially has about equal rights and that things are prosperous and things are great. And their vision of America is a movie version of America, right?
That's what we're sold. I mean,
right.
I knew about America so Home Alone.
Yes. Precisely. The problem is, we have this internal vision of America as a place of true equity, as a place of fairness and justice, without acknowledging the fact that those things have to be fought for. They don't just happen because you wish it. They happen because people go in the streets and demand it. And our communities have gotten complacent and have forgotten the history, like for the Asian community.
For the Chinese.
For the Chinese community.
What the 10th largest Chinese population is in Houston area.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the Chinese community is probably one of the best examples, right? We have a lot of people coming from China within the last 20 years. And their vision of America is what they've seen on TV in China and other places. And they come here and they say, everything's wonderful. Why do I care about civil rights? Why do I care about immigration laws? Why do I care about any of this stuff? Everything is great. I'm making lots of money. People leave me alone. But they have never seen that the history of Chinese people in this country, the brutal, horrific history and the terrible things that have been done to our people in this nation over the last 200 years, older, more established Chinese Americans saying, hey guys, things were really bad in the past, not that long ago. Right? We were banned from coming into this country until 1965. That ain't that long ago.
We were banned.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, people forget that.
Right? And I mean, we had the Chinese Exclusion Act.
The Chinese Exclusion Act, the first U.S. law restricting immigration based on race.
It lasted from 1882 to 1965. In 1942, the government repealed it on paper. They repealed it on paper to satisfy the Chinese government so they can unite and fight against the Japanese in World War II. But they hated our community so much that they kept those policies in place just by sheer force of will for another 20 years.
Here in Texas, where you're in a district where majority Latino.
Right.
Can you talk about the relationship between the Latino community and the Asian community here? Certainly the Asian immigrant community and the Latino immigrant community?
And I think you've hit exactly the right point. It's not just Latinos, it's not just Asians, it's not just African Americans, it's everybody. Right? Yes. Our country and the forces that be, the powers that be, have spent tremendous time, effort, and money to make sure that those groups are never united, that they always see each other as enemies and as competitors, without ever realizing that they share one thing in common, that their oppressors all are the same, right? The oppression comes from one place. And I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone and to make things fair. But the problem is our communities are divided. They're completely divided. And I talk about this all the time, is that like for Asian Americans and for African Americans, we probably have one of the worst relationships between any community.
Well,
right?
I bet you a lot of Asian Americans too don't, in my experience, don't even realize that if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, if it wasn't for that,
yes,
there would not be 22 million Asian Americans in this
Thank
country.
Thank you.
So,
and what I have been trying to teach the Asian community is like, friends, do you understand that your success, your prosperity, your civil rights that you enjoy right now was paid for with Black blood?
Yes.
Right? And the fact that you don't recognize that shows you how much you take this for granted and how much you don't care about the future. Because if you understood this, you would be grateful for their sacrifice and understand what they have gone through for you to have rights. And the second thing along with that is I remind you that liberty and rights don't exist in perpetuity. They exist as long as we say they exist. And if you want it to continue in the future, it's not going to be Black people again. They're not going to go to fight this battle for you again this time. You will have to go fight it, right? It is time for the Asian American community to stand up. It is time for the Latino community to stand up and start demanding rights and having the same fights that the African Americans had
since time immemorial,
right?
Since the country was founded and told people that we were all free when we were not.
Because if you don't fight for something,
then
you will always take it for granted. If you didn't earn something, then it's worthless to you.
But sir, and here you are, and thank you for the real talk, but here you are, you have a governor that has been very profitable to make this as a Latino border wall issue that erases
Correct.
Asians, blacks, and white people from the conversation.
The history of our nation is replete with instances and examples of leaders using minority communities, immigrant communities especially, as scapegoats to turn them into a Frankenstein's monster, to say, that's the problem, that's who's causing it. When in reality, nobody asked Dr. Frankenstein, what have you done? What have you done to make this thing, right? And then right now, the Asian American community is the target because of this as well. The Latino community has now become a target again. They made the Haitians a target.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
And we have watched this from the beginning of our nation, from Irish need not apply to making sure, saying that like Italians and Sicilians, they're not one of us. You can't trust them, they're Catholics, right? To here in Texas, going after the Germans and the Polish.
I was about to bring that up, yes.
Everybody, almost virtually every immigrant in this country has been made a target, a scapegoat, a boogeyman to be used for political gain of some kind in some time. The fact that we don't remember it, the fact that our communities, German communities, Italian communities, everyone, Polish, the fact that they don't come and stand up and say, hey, they did the exact same thing to us and we're not gonna tolerate it, right? The fact that we don't do that is deeply, deeply shameful.
And also, as you were talking, we have said the word history at least 3 times in a country that lives in a historical amnesia of its own.
Of course, because we are a society that reinvents ourselves every 20 years, right? I mean, whatever happened in the 1990s, that's ancient history. Yes. We don't know what happened back then. I mean, are those people even alive still, right? And so we always have the sense as America is what it is now at this moment, and there's nothing connecting us to the past.
Thank you for unpacking all of that. And now, getting back to Abbott.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to think of another governor who has profited more from the anti-immigrant, who not only profited, but who has made it his mission.
So we're going to take the border to him by transporting the people that he is dropping off in these local communities in the state of Texas and sending them to Washington by plane or by bus.
Right? And now you have a president. The combination of a Governor Abbott and a President Trump is dangerous in an area like Houston, in a state like Texas. So again, that's why I brought up Operation Lone Star. Like, how is that working out?
I mean, right now, from what I know, the border crossings are so low that they're having trouble even filling the buses because immigration is cyclical. Right? Immigration, we always say like, oh, these people are coming to hurt our country. No, these people are coming whenever things are really bad, when people feel like they're gonna die if they stay somewhere, when their children are gonna starve to death, when gangs are going to like murder and rape them, they come, right? When we make an active effort to decrease those things that make them need to leave, immigration slows down. Right? And most important of all, the thing that we always talk around is the fact that we could have fixed this years ago. We could have had a proper immigration bill that would have provided the ability to have migrant farm workers, for people to come and just labor for a little bit and then go home and then come back and go home and come back.
For this to make sense.
Yes. America cannot run without immigrants, period. And the sooner people understand that, the better off we are. And we can start actually having real conversations with this.
Well, I actually think people understand it. It's just a matter of facing what that means.
Yes. Because if you listen to all the conversations that are happening around Trump and mass deportation now, everybody's, well, we're not worried because we're the good ones. My neighbors are the good ones. My cleaning lady, a yard guy, they're all undocumented, but they're the good ones. Right? Because in that sense of that statement that all these people say, we're not worried, my people that take care of my life, they're the good ones. There's a sense that people recognize that even if people are undocumented, that they're good people, that they work hard, that they add to our society to make our lives better, they take care of our children, they take care of everything in our life. and they recognize that that's important to them. But somehow, just like how we beat up on the education system. But when people ask, how's your teacher? Oh, our teacher's amazing. So which teachers are not amazing? Which teachers are the problem? Because I ask you, you say your teacher's amazing. I ask that parent, they said that another teacher's amazing. All the teachers are amazing. Who's the bad one? And this is kind of like the question on immigration. Everyone makes this demonization of, well, we're just dealing with the bad ones. Who are the bad ones? Because I ask around, right? And everyone's working hard. There's no government benefits for undocumented people. They gotta work.
There are no government, especially not in Texas.
Hell no. Everybody works and works their asses off, right?
You wouldn't even let them drive.
Yeah, these people who have, these are the literal hardest working people in our entire damn country. We put every hurdle in front of them. We put every barrier in front of them, and yet they persevere. They survive. They do better. They improve. Why wouldn't we want these people to be Americans? The hardest, most resilient, most innovative, most intelligent people are here, and they're doing the jobs in spite of everything we're throwing at them. And if this is it's like running a gauntlet. These are the people who actually made it through the gauntlet that we set up. We should give them a prize. They should win a green card. They should win citizenship. We should want the people who will not give up to be Americans.
And by the way, I have not heard a politician, especially someone who is an immigrant himself, frame it the way you just did. It is a daily Olympics.
Yes.
Especially in a city like this. This is probably the least walking friendly city.
I mean, even Trump admits, why don't we offer a green card to anybody with a master's or PhD? Right? If you want to be in this country, go get an education. Get a master's in mathematics. Go get a PhD in engineering. Go get whatever it is. You get that degree, you promise to stay here, you get a green card.
Yeah.
Right? Why don't we, if we say we don't like China, we don't like all those places, here's an easy solution. Train their brain. Right? Bring all their smartest and most talented people here and put them right here in America. Make them Americans. Make them love this country. Right? If you want to deal with other places, take their very best. Tell their very best to come here. Because that's what America is.
It's been deeply frustrating. Actually, no, that's the wrong word. It's been deeply infuriating to be a constituent of leaders who don't want to lead.
Who are scared to lead.
Or scared to lead. And when it comes to this issue, the central issue of immigration, leadership is, I don't know where everybody is. Yeah. Where are you on it?
So, no, I mean, I think one of the things for me is I have this issue dealing in the Asian community. We have people who are Asian and who are leaders, and they're not really that proud to be Asian. Or if they're proud to be Asian, they're very quiet about it. And I'm like, when I first ran for office, when I first got it, and I told my staff, we want it because we represent a very diverse district with people from all the world. I don't want to be the Asian rep, right? Because I don't want to get pigeonholed. I want other people to come to me, even if they're not Asian, and say, hey, we have a problem, and feel like I'm going to listen to them. And over the years, what I've realized is, well, if I don't do it, who will? If I don't act as the Asian rep and defend my people, who's going to do it? And what I also realize is that, look, when I am out there and I'm proud to be Asian and I'm proud to be an immigrant and I go defend those things, other people come to me. People from other communities say, hey, we saw what you did. We saw you stand up. Could you stand up for us too? Right? And I'm saying, hell yeah, brother. Right? And I think what the lesson is, to me at least, is be who you are. Fight for the things you believe in. Fight for the people you love. And everything else will work out.
And I have to say, when I first got to this office, one of the things that stood out to me is you're sitting there in front of this photo that says, I represent a district filled with immigrants.
Some are here as refugees. Some are here as citizens. Some are here without papers, but they're all my people. And they're all Americans. And they are all Americans. I don't care what your status is. If you are in this country and you love this country and you want your family to be here, you are an American.
And you said this April 2017, a few months after Trump first took office. And now here we are. What are your biggest fears when you think about the fate of undocumented people here in Houston in the next 4 years?
It's not just the fate of undocumented people. It's the fate of all immigrants. Because as a reminder, in World War II, during the Japanese incarceration, right? People say, oh, I'm not worried, I'm a citizen. 2/3 of the 120,000 plus Japanese Americans who were taken were natural-born American citizens, right? When this deportation happens, when the mass deportation begins, I promise you, it will not just be illegal immigrants who are affected. It will be Americans, whether they're family members, whether they're people who love their friends, whether they're coworkers, whatever it is, Americans will be affected.
So what are your biggest fears? That the mass deportation is going to happen, that warrants will be issued? Like, what's keeping you up at night on this?
It's all of the above. It's not just the actual events of mass deportation or anything like that, but it's watching what will happen in other places, watching what people react. When we had the pandemic and people were making really nasty comments about Asians, right? Blaming things on Chinese people. All Asians took the brunt of it.
All Asians.
All Asians took the brunt of it. Because nobody understands or even knows or cares the difference between Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Korean.
They do though. They do. They know the difference between Vietnamese food and Thai food and Chinese food.
Sure.
The food they know. The people they don't.
Yeah. But the only thing that takes to spark an act of hate is sometimes just someone with Asian face, right? And it's real easy to pick on people and attack people in the shadows. We had a big problem around here where people were systematically robbing undocumented immigrants, targeting them because they know that they keep a lot of cash because they don't have access to banks. And because they won't go to the cops, right? And the reason they got caught is because our police had a good relationship with the community. And people knew that they could come to the police and report things and not worry about their status. But if police start assisting with a roundup, if they help on that, all that built up trust is going to be poured out. And remind my colleagues, trust is earned in drips and dribbles, but is poured out in buckets. And if we break down that trust in our community, terrible things will happen.
How are you telling your constituents to get prepared?
I think really we're telling people if people ask us for advice, and we've tried to provide some, is that to learn what the law is. For as long as there is still law and order in this country, we have rules about who has to identify themselves and when, right? We tell people, unless you're being arrested, you don't need to answer questions about immigration or anything. And the cops around here are not supposed to ask about your status.
They're not
supposed to, right? Because it's not a function of their job. If someone is going to be arrested and they're going to jail and they're undocumented, they will figure that out at the jail.
Also, you can't arrest anybody without a warrant.
Correct. And you can't. And it is, despite the best efforts of the legislature, you cannot just simply say, I think someone's undocumented and then haul them in, right? That's illegal.
It does not work like that.
It does not work like that. And we need to teach our people. We need to teach our people, hey, when the cop randomly comes up to you and asks you for your ID, you're saying what did I do? Are you charging me? Are you arresting me? Are you investigating me? Are you what for, right? Because unless you're a witness to a crime, unless you are a suspect in a crime, you don't have to do nothing.
How else can other people from other communities, what we just spoke about a few minutes ago, how do we bring all these groups together?
Yeah. If you're a member of these groups, if you're an immigrant, if you're Latino, if you're Asian, if you're
An African
if you
immigrant. Yeah.
African American, if you care about this, join another group, form up an organization in your community. Join an organization, create an organization, whatever it is. What ultimate needs to happen, the only way these things get better is one, we change the public's narrative about what we're doing. When we talk about immigrants in a way that we say, like, immigrants are very important to us. The border is a problem, but we can fix that through passing good laws, right? It doesn't have to be
Common sense
laws. It doesn't have to be that way forever. But at the same time, we should be welcoming immigrants into this country, because you have a lot of people, especially the white nationalists, who said we should go ahead and all the statements about closing the border, right? What they're really saying is we don't want any non-white people to come into the country anymore.
Part of the message too is we want the labor, but we don't want the people.
Correct? Exactly.
All you got to do is look around Texas. Half of your labor, half of the construction business in the state of Texas come from undocumented labor.
Yeah.
You're farmers. I mean, a few years ago, I remember there was a piece of law saying that it would be illegal for a Texan to hire somebody who was undocumented unless they were housekeepers. I thought it was a joke.
Of course.
But it was actually a real piece of legislation. I don't think it went anywhere, but that's the reality, right? The labor people want, the people.
And that is like the truly amazing thing to me, that we know what's going to happen if we do these things, but yet we're still going to do them anyways, right? For example, in Florida, they put into law that everyone has to use the E-Verify system.
E-Verify.
And really all it does is it gives employers a way to verify that the people that they're hiring are actually eligible for employment.
Right? And what happens? Entire state just, right? Right now in Florida, they can't rebuild after the hurricanes because there are no laborers. And they can't even deal with the past disasters because there are no laborers. And prices are going up because no one's picking oranges, no one's picking fruit, and doing all these things because there are no laborers. And restaurants are having to go down to 3 days or 2 days because there are no laborers. But yet, at the same time, we know that all this stuff happened. Guess what Texas is about to do? They're about to pass the E-Verify law to do the exact same thing, having learned absolutely nothing because it is politically expedient.
I'm so glad you brought up narrative. What is the role of the news media here in Houston and in the state? Do they even really cover immigrant communities with the kind of complexity that is needed?
So absolutely not. Not definitely without, there's no nuance, there's no understanding, because for the most part, news people are not immigrants, right? The stations around here, even though this is a heavy immigrant community, don't hire a lot of people who came here as immigrants. And so the feeling is different, the experiences are different. And so when there's a lot of coverage, for example, covering the border situation is complex, but at the same time, a lot of that stuff was generated. It was a theater put on by Governor Abbott. And they worked up the area, piled all the immigrants they collected into one area and said, look at this big problem, when it was a staged craft, right?
It's theater.
It was theater. It was kabuki theater. And the press, who have a responsibility to suss out all the details of a story, just basically took their press releases and just reprinted them, right? And that's not journalism, right? We could just reprint their press releases on our own. We could just read the press releases on our own. And what I would want to see from media is
local media in particular.
Local media, everybody, is this effort to look at not only our history, but look at the actual practical issues within immigration. To recognize this idea that America would not exist but for immigration, right? That like my people built the railroads, right? That African slaves built and generated the wealth of this country. Latinos
Own this land.
Own this land.
before
This
you-
was
before
this
it
was
taken.
Mexico,
This was Mexico.
right?
It was theirs.
Latinos built Texas. Latinos built Texas, and then it was taken from them. Okay, and all these different things are never discussed.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, again, I completely agree with all that. And the thing that I want to say is, I just want to know, as a journalist who happens to be undocumented, how the hell do you get around Houston without driver's licenses? I mean, as undocumented people, you know, we were driving around. I was like, oh, I like that. But it was good for me to know that if you're undocumented, you probably shouldn't be driving in Bel Air, or you should turn on the street, because then the police department of Bel Air is, you know, you'll get stopped more.
That's the entirety of my district, right? We deal with this on a daily basis, and it's one of those things where we make an argument. There's practical arguments about, like, hey, can we just provide them with some kind of a driver's license, so that at least we know that they have the minimal training needed to understand road signs and other things. Can we make sure that they have insurance? One of the things I tell people in the community, I don't care what your status is, make sure you have insurance, right? Because you can buy insurance without any kind of proof. And so, I mean, like, I've been in car accidents with people who I ask them for a license. They don't have a license, but I say, I don't care, just show me your insurance, right? And we just get the insurance information and we just go home.
But to me, that's a responsibility of the press. There's all these thousands of people driving without authorization.
Yep.
That is a factual thing. Then what? So now let me make sure that I ask you this question. You were just elected as the new chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. Democrats will control what? 62 seats to Republicans with 88.
Yeah, well, we're 43%.
40, okay.
Yeah.
So how do you, and you know, and also the incumbent House Speaker, Republican Dade Phelan, was pressured into stepping down by far-right members of his own party.
Correct.
So how are you going to fight against that odds?
Without going into actual strategies and things like that, like, look, what I want to do differently than from what has been done in the past is be much more proactive in engaging our communities, right? And ultimately, what wins political battles is not us. It's you. It's the people of the state. It's the community. It's the people who make the decisions. It's people who drive the narrative. It's people who tell politicians what to do. That's how you win. And what we want to do is, like, when these battles come up, we want to bring the community, right? But because it's not just one group, it's everybody. We want African Americans to care about what happens to Latinos. We want Asians to care. We want Latinos to care about what happens to Asians, and we want Jewish people to care about what happens to Muslims, and Muslims to care about what, right? We want everybody to understand and unite to say, if they come for one, they will come for all. And that's the key. And we are, as I'm fighting anti-Asian laws in the state and at the federal level, we go to, and those laws are, like, for right now, target Chinese people mainly, Chinese and Koreans. And we say to people who are not Chinese and Korean, we say, this will come for you next, right? If you're Vietnamese and you say, oh, yeah, screw the Chinese, we don't care, right? It's like, you understand that Vietnam's also a kind of communist country, right? And maybe you're not as big, but if it's good for one, it's good for the other, right? And we talk about the Muslim ban and all the things that are going to happen with those. It's like, you understand that if we can ban them from traveling, we can ban other people from traveling. It's a matter of time, right? And if you don't care that it's happening to one group, by the time it happens to you, it will be too late.
One question I want to make sure I ask you, you're Texas made, right? You immigrated here at the age of, can you talk to us about your personal immigrant story?
So my dad came before we did. He went to University of Oregon, which is why my name is Eugene.
I was wondering that.
And my American name is Eugene. I have a Chinese name as well. And then later on, he went to UT Permian Basin for his nursing degree. And because that's how you get a green card, right? And so we joined him in Odessa, and like at 4.5, I went from the third largest city in China to a town of 20,000. You want to talk about culture shock? So that was interesting. And after that, after he finished his degree, we moved down to Houston. He became a nurse at Methodist, and my mom ended up working at Methodist as a biotech as well. And that's basically.
But this is Texas's home.
Yeah, Texas is home. Houston is home. And it's been amazing to watch the city grow and watch the immigrant community grow. Chinatown, when we first came here, was one grocery store.
Now you have 2 Chinatowns.
Right. Which shows you the financial power of the Asian community.
But in terms of the political culture of the country, the polarization that faces the country, how this country continues to deny its history to itself.
Yes.
All of those things, Texas is going to decide.
That's what the book bans and the CRT ban and all that stuff, that's what that's actually about. Yeah. Right? There is a real effort to make sure that history is not taught, to make sure that people don't learn about the past, because when people learn about the past, when people learn what's going on right now and compared to what happened 100 years ago, they're going to be pissed. And part of why there is this concerted effort to cover all this stuff up is to say, basically, these people will come and support us as long as they don't know what we did.
But I'm reminded, as you're saying that right now, that I'm reminded by that quote that says, history first happens as tragedy, then it repeats itself as farce.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hopefully work so that it doesn't become farcical.
I'm hoping that whatever terrible things that Trump and Republican allies do to this country, that the consequences of that are learned, that our communities actually learn a lesson from it and realize that our decisions at a political level have real and lasting consequences on our own people. And because I think too many people just looked at the election as, yeah, it'll be funny. What's the worst that could happen? Well, let's find out. Let's find out.
And we're about to find out.
And we're about to find out, right?
Thank you so much for your time.